Super Bowl champions.
Swinging a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes!
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Welcome in. Get your breakfast sandwiches ready. Get your coffee ready. We got a little Saturday morning baseball conversation. Drunk on the Fightins. Good morning, Eric. How we doing, brother?
Good, Don. How you doing, man?
Hey, listen, the weather could not be nicer. The team could not be looking better-ish in the last couple of days. So there's a lot to be thankful for, a lot to be happy for. But looking forward to talking some baseball today, brother. What's on your mind coming into this game on Sunday?
So I think it's important to get this. We have Wheeler going on the mound. They have Urena. He's not had a great start to the season so far. I think I saw he's only made it to the fifth inning, like one game so in his 4 or 5 starts. And I think he's given up at least 3 runs in each game. So this is one where I think the offense needs to jump on him a little early, give Wheeler a lead so he can kind of settle in and relax. Because Wheeler's he's had some struggles so far. So, but against a pretty bad Rockies team, it's important to get 3 out of 4. I think.
Well, one of those Sunday rocking chair rats.
That's what we're hoping. Yeah. It's a nice day for it. So hopefully we get a W here.
You hope that they're able to get the bats going early, right? You get Stott. Stott's going to lead off. Stott could not be hotter at this point. The hit streak to start the season ends, but you have the place where he's establishing himself at the top of the lineup, which I didn't think would happen, right? Considering you bring in Trey Turner in the offseason. You had almost in the offseason penciled him in to just be leadoff. And you're seeing Stott, right? Stott's going to lead off. Turner, Schwarber, Castellanos are going to lead off the game. I think, the day that Castellanos has yesterday, gets 2 home runs. Really kind of you're starting to see the rust of the spring training kind of wear off. I really like where this lineup is, and it's early. It's really early. So the more that these guys can get their bats in order early, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's funny, actually, at the end of last season when, obviously before Turner was signed or anything, I started thinking to myself, I think Stott might be good kind of at the top of the order there if he can actually, if he can prove to hit. He's really good at working counts. He's got pretty good pitch selection, which is actually something don't get me wrong. I love Turner. I love him at the top of the lineup, but he kind of jumps on some pitches early, gets some early pop-ups, strikes out a little bit more than I was expecting. Now, I think it's still early. Obviously, things can change. I don't know if he's pressing a little bit because he's trying to, carry the load while Bryce is out. But, he doesn't really have to because Schwarber, always starts out a little slow, but he's hitting home runs at a pretty good clip right now. Castellanos
already have 5.
Yeah, which isn't bad. I think right now, I think the major league lead is like 10 or something. So obviously, but he'll get there at some point. But Castellanos, that's the point I wanted to get to here eventually, was because yesterday we finally saw some of that power coming back. That one of the things we signed him for. Now I was there. The wind was definitely blowing out a little bit, so that may have helped a little bit. It was definitely windy, but it's good seeing that. And then he drove that double too. So rather than him just kind of hitting those ground ball doubles down the line and stuff, he's actually starting to seem like he's driving the ball a little bit, which is what we want to see from him, especially in the 4-hole.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 10 doubles on the season, which is great.
I think he's leading the league, actually.
Yeah, so to see where he's at in terms of not to overlook the statistical stuff, right? Because it is early, but I think the thing that I'm looking at is they have, I want to say they've got 9 or 10 guys that are already hitting with the extra base hits. If they're not getting the home runs will come, right? The second that this weather turns and the weather is in the high 80s, low 90s, consistently throughout the summer, the ball's going to start flying out of that
It's
park.
going to travel.
And
Yeah.
and I think it's going to happen right at the right time, because you're going to see, now, and we'll talk about it in a minute, but the news that Harper's kind of going to be back sooner than later, probably just going to slot him into that DH for the foreseeable future. Between there, maybe get him a little time at first base, depending on the elbow. I like where this team, I feel like we're going to be like late May, early June. The lineup's going to kind of hit its stride. You're going to insert Harper into that lineup where you're going to kind of lead off with some combination of Stott, Turner, Harper, Realmuto, Schwarber. I mean, there's a scenario in here where like Castellanos may hit 6th or 5th, which, considering the start to the season that he's had, that's saying something about the amount of power into this lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the big question marks coming into the season was how Castellanos was going to rebound, because he didn't really have a good season from a power standpoint or even really a contact standpoint last year. So I think having him even just starting out the year, making contact with the ball, laying off some of those outside pitches, is a really big improvement. And like you said, we're going to have, Bryce coming back. Weather's going to start warming up. Some of these guys who are slumping, Schwarber is notoriously known for his Junes. So he's going to heat up, you got to figure. So I think the lineup's in a really good spot compared to where they were last year. I know it was something, we talked about was the spot that the Phillies were in last year compared to this year, right? Mm-hmm. And last year they didn't have all these things to kind of look forward to. Stott wasn't playing. Bohm was kind of still unknown. They didn't have a sure center fielder. Whereas this year, we have things to look forward to, right? Bryce is coming back. Ranger should be coming back. Maybe Andrew Painter later in the year. So there's a lot of things this season to still look forward to improve on a start that I think a lot of people were disappointed in, but I think we're starting to see them turn the corner a little bit here.
Yeah, no, I really like where they are. And to think about, like, in today's lineup, right, Marsh is going to bat 5th. Mm-hmm. In that ideal lineup later on in the year, I mean, he's batting 7, 8, 9, right? Maybe he's the guy at the end of the lineup that turns the lineup over. Edmundo Sosa's going to bat 9th, which is a guy that has kind of come on. The pickup, it's a very underrated pickup from last year that I think they kind of they bet kind of on the upside with him and Marsh, where they saw young guys that maybe weren't getting a lot of playing time, that if they could work with them internally. And I think you're starting to see the production. He ends up getting a big at bat yesterday. I like where they are with their pieces. And I think the more and more they get guys back healthy, when it pushes those guys that are being productive in the lineup kind of onto the bench, it makes that bench unit much stronger. And not for nothing, but for me, you can get rid of a guy like Cody Clemens, because me personally, I've kind of seen that experiment. I honestly would rather see more. And I know Pache has a home run, in this series. That experiment to me I've seen enough. I would honestly, with the money that you're paying Kingery, I would honestly rather see Scott Kingery play and at least give him a shot, because I feel like you might get slightly more productive offensively.
So it's interesting, actually, because I was actually looking at something this morning about Pache, and he started out the year, and his beginning with the Phillies was not good. We'll just put it that way. But he's kind of turning. I'm not saying he's a good offensive player by any means, but is Kevin Long having a little bit of an effect on him, because he's now hitting a sneaky 300 so far in I think 20 at bats with the team. Okay. He's driven in a couple runs. The home run yesterday. Now, 2 of the runs he drove in were in one swing. But I don't want him in there every day. And I think Thompson's learning that Marsh can hit. Like, he's been now he started against a lefty yesterday. Granted, it was Kyle Freeland, but I think they're starting to let him play. I don't mind Pache in there on a game like yesterday or today. where you're going against a lefty. Because he does play good defense and he can play any of the outfield positions. He got to a ball that was hit pretty hard yesterday in left field
on the
run. And I don't know Schwarber definitely would not have gotten there.
No.
So he might still be running for it. But I'm okay with kind of giving him a shot. I mean, we see what you made the point about how the Phillies kind of took a chance on Sosa and Marsh, and when we traded for both those guys, we traded for them as defensive upgrades, right? Sosa was supposed to kind of be a utility guy off the bench. Now he's hitting, I think I saw a stat this morning, he's hitting like 326 in so many games with the Phillies so far, which is really impressive because I don't think the guy hit more than 220 since when he was with St. Louis. Marsh, same thing. He was a top rated prospect, but wasn't really doing it out in LA. He comes here, and last year there was some frustrating things with strikeouts and all, but again, we don't need him to be the number 5 hitter that he's going to be right now. Once we get the lineup kind of boosted back to where it's supposed to be, he can be a 7, 8, 9 hitter, and if he hits half of what he's doing right now, he's going to be productive from that spot in the lineup. So I really like what they're doing with some of these guys and kind of taking flyers on some of these projects. Dabrowski knows what he's looking for. I think Kevin Long really knows how to get these guys, looking for the right pitches and getting them back in the groove. So I'm okay with kind of where we're at right now in terms of that.
Dare I say, is Kevin Long having a Jeff Stoutland type effect on maybe getting more production out of guys that maybe couldn't have, not that Jeff Stoutland he does work really well in terms of molding that position group, but I think Kevin Long might be, you make a really good point, and maybe I'm kind of pulling the trigger a little bit too early, not realizing, it's sometimes it's hard to see the production in those spurts when it's, they're only playing maybe one or two times a week. But I guess when you take a step back, you look at that overall picture. Maybe I'm kind of maybe I'm jumping the gun a little bit.
I think it's a natural reaction because I think everyone was that way with Pache in the beginning. I mean, he took a lot of heat those first few games, and deservedly so. But and Thompson took some heat for consistently playing him. But he didn't hurt the team. He helped the team pretty considerably yesterday. And as long as he's not hurting the team, as a role player, I'm okay with him being in there then. I agree.
And listen, to go back to where, you had mentioned a little bit ago where they were a year ago, right? Do you think you can go the lineup? So they have Segura, Hoskins, Harper, Castellanos, Real Muto, Schwarber, Bohm. Do you know who played shortstop and center field for this team 1 year ago this last year?
So was center field, was that a Double still? He got the start today. And shortstop was Didi Gregorius, yeah.
Johan Camargo.
Oh, Camargo. Okay.
Got the start on this day last year. But yes. So the lineup very, very different, right? This time last year, and even from the beginning of the year at the end of the year. So but I like where they could be this, as this lineup starts to project moving forward. Talk about pitching, right? Because the pitching kind of started off a little funky. Nola has kind of gone through his, still going through the ebbs and flows. Christopher Sanchez gets you a decent start. Where are you at with the pitching?
So I think, the pitching's you're right. It's kind of in a fragile spot right now. But there's reasons for optimism, I want to say, on most fronts. So Nola obviously did not start the season real great. Still not super impressed with his stuff this year. What was it? Friday night, he pitched 7 innings, only really gave up that home run to Crone. And pitched pretty well. He only had 3 strikeouts, and I think he was, or this is 2 starts ago. By his last inning, he was topping out at like 89 with his fastball, and that's a little concerning to me because Nola's never been like a blow it by you type guy. But if he's not going to be sitting 93, 94, I think he loses some of his effectiveness there. So I'd like to see that kind of come back, him kind of build up that strength and keep his velocity going. I think that would help him a little bit. Wheeler is another one where, he seems to be coming out of the gate pretty strong. We're seeing, 96, 97 in the first few innings. Then by like the fourth inning, he's dropping off to like 93, 94. And Wheeler is a velocity guy, right? Like that's kind of what he's relying on. So I don't know if it's, I know after the last game, he said he had some back tightness or something. So maybe that had something to do with it. You really just hope it's not an injury thing with Wheeler, because we don't really have a lot of depth in the starting rotation right now with within sideline for a little bit. But that's where some of the optimism comes back into play, right? Rangers are going to come back, in the next few weeks. I think it was reported yesterday that he's going to have to make like 3 or 4 rehab starts. They want to see him at like 90 pitches or so, which is fair. So we probably got I would say, 2 or 3 weeks probably still before he would even be close to returning. Taijuan Walker has really turned it around in his first few starts. Not that he pitched horribly in those starts, but it was just kind of lackluster, not really much going on. But he's looked really good in his last 2 starts. And then honestly, my guy Matt Strahm has, I know he's had 1 or 2 bad outings, but that dude is fun to watch out there. He's intense, he's passionate, and he's really filling in nicely when we really signed him to be a reliever. And I think once Suarez is back, I know some people have been saying put Falter in the pen. Falter to me is not a bullpen guy because he doesn't have that velocity, right? He could maybe go a couple long innings for you, but Strahm can too. And Strahm has, I think, more of the stuff to do that. Falter's not a bad number 5 starter. People like to rip on him, but your number 5 starter is not going to have a sub 3.5 ERA or anything. No, right? They're going to be in the mid 4s, and that's basically what you get. You want him to eat innings. That's what he's doing. So I'm actually happy with those guys. The 2 that I think that it really hinges on right now are Wheeler and Nola, who, while neither one is awful right now, we need them to kind of get into form, so that way these are 3, 4, 5, and now Sanchez, if we do need a 6th starter, there's not as much pressure on those guys, because they should not be the ones carrying this rotation. Yeah, I mean, listen, the 2 guys that I wanted to talk about, you took it right out of my mouth, right? The guy that has been really impressive to me on the first end is Taijuan Walker, right? You're getting essentially what could be a number 2 on most rotations, as a number 3, being really, really productive. He's going out there. He's got 2 wins on the season, eating a lot of innings. And Matt Strahm, man, the Stromboli has been a guy that has been a lot better than anyone ever expected, right? A guy that you mentioned, they don't bring him in to fill this role, but he kind of just steps in. And I think, as we mentioned earlier, as these guys start to get back healthier, you're going to get these guys back when these guys start to slot into different roles, and the roles that they will be in for the foreseeable future for the rest of the summer. I really like where I could project where this lineup could go. Jose Alvarado at the back end of this has been everything as advertised, right? The ERA is below 1. He's coming in, he's got 3 saves on the season, which, even in the games where he's not recording the save, been very impressive, right? The stuff that he's coming out of the pen with is electric, which is exactly what you want to rely on at the back end of this bullpen. So, Sir Anthony Dominguez has been, again, going through those. It's still early. But I think, there might be an opportunity, come the trade deadline, where they start to maybe cherry pick someone, out of some, off a team, where they can plug and play into the back end of that line, whether it's a setup guy. But I think you're going to start to see more production out of, Marte. You're going to start to see, production out of Gregory Soto. He's looked good in his last couple outings. I like where this team is in terms of, even though in the standings it doesn't look great, when I look at the guys, I'm okay. I fully agree with that. Yep. The bullpen, when coming into the season, I think was ranked by MLB.com as like the 6th or 7th best bullpen in baseball. And the first series or 2 were like, wait, what? What happened with these guys? Yeah. Alvarado has been great the entire year. I mean, some of the innings that he's pitching, maybe some of the nastiest relief performances that I can remember. He has just been absolutely dominant out there, and it's been really fun to watch. You mentioned 2 other guys. Gregory Soto, first game looked not great, but remember he did come into spring training a little bit late due to the visa issues and everything. He's been on a tear since then. In his last 8 appearances, he has not allowed an earned run. He's looking good with strikeouts. He has the stuff. Him and Alvarado are very similar to me, I think. And I think if they can hone, just like what they did with Alvarado, if they can hone in on Soto's command and his control, we could have 2 of the nastiest left-handed relievers in baseball. Dominguez looks like he's starting to figure it out a little bit. He had another scoreless appearance yesterday. In his last 5 appearances, he's only given up 1 earned run, so looking good there. Is this me or is this?
Von C. Brewing Company is a 20-barrel, 16,000-square-foot microbrewery with a 2,500-square-foot tasting room, including a spacious outside beer garden in Norristown, PA, in the heart of Montgomery County. The Von C. family is part of the family that started C. Schmidt and Son Brewing in 1860. Stop in Wednesday through Sunday and taste a variety of draft and 16-ounce cans of originally brewed beer and tell them the Drunk on Broad crew sent you. Von C. Brewing is located at 1210 Stenbridge Street, Suite 300 in Norristown. Cheers.
Team Clicks are the only glasses for real sports fans. With interchangeable arms, you can support all of your favorite teams, or even make and create custom options as well. These die-hard sports fans have realized that sports fans needed something other than face paint to show their love and passion for their teams. Go to teamclicks.com/DOB and show your love for your hometown team.
La Torrent's curated collection of men's and women's watches is a perfect investment that lasts for years to come and fits perfectly with your every outfit and style. Our range of classic watches aren't just a great perfect formal and casual accessory, but a time machine that takes you back to memories. Explore our collection of timeless watches that can reflect your taste, personality, and personal style. Our exclusive collection of carefully curated, affordable luxury watches is what you need to make a personalized style statement. You can take pride in your prized possession, handing it over to the next generations as your most loved asset that they can also own and display with the same pride. These high-quality pieces stand the test of time, giving exceptional value and return on your investment. Go to la-touraine.com and use code DOB at checkout and get 10% off.
If you're looking for unique sports apparel, check out Streaker Sports. They've dug deep into the archives and have brought back some incredible defunct team logos and have even created entire defunct league collections. They also have collections paying homage to sports culture, including the Miracle on Ice, Slap Shot, Caddyshack, the Mighty Ducks, and even have a license with Wiffle Ball and USA Hockey. Only for Drunk on Broad listeners, use code BROAD at checkout to get 10% off anything at streakersports.com. Again, that's 10% off anything at streakersports.com with discount code BROAD.
All right, we're back. We're waiting for Don to get his audio back here. I'll just kind of go off and talk a little bit more about the bullpen and some of the pitching that we've been seeing here. So far, things have been going pretty well. We're starting to see guys like Soto, Dominguez, Alvarado step up. Don mentioned Junior Marte a little bit earlier before the break, and he's a guy who is interesting, right? He's got some really good stuff, but he has had some ups and downs. Obviously, he did not start out the season great. Ended up getting optioned. He's been kind of going back and forth here. He's a guy to keep an eye on, though. He does have the stuff, so you never really know when he when he could make an appearance again and come back. So we have Don back here. You there, Don? All right. Well, anyway, a couple other guys. Andrew Bellotti just had to go on the IL with 15-day IL. I think it was forearm tendonitis, if I'm not mistaken. He's been used a lot so far this year, and you got to imagine that in some way that maybe the overuse has caused some of that. So him going on the IL makes a little bit of a difference here for the bullpen. But now we have Christopher Sanchez up as of right now. I haven't seen any roster moves yet this morning regarding that. Going into today, we know we have Wheeler on the mound against Jose Urena of Colorado, who, as I said at the beginning of the show, has not had a great start to the season, but so it should be a chance for the Phillies to kind of jump all over him. It would be huge for them to end up getting the series win here against Rockies team that is not very good. I think coming into the series, they had lost a pretty significant number in a row. So it would be good for the Phillies to walk out of here with a win going into next week. Looking ahead at the Phillies schedule, they're off tomorrow, but then they end up playing Seattle. Seattle comes to town Tuesday. Seattle's got a really good team. They kind of started coming back a little bit in the last couple of years. They have a really good pitching staff. Luis Castilla is, kind of anchoring that down. Julio Rodriguez won AL Rookie of the Year last year, so he's a guy the Phillies pitching is going to really have to kind of work around. But coming into the series, I think that's why it's really important for the Phillies to get that win today, because the Mariners series is not going to necessarily be an easy one for them. So we're going to want to start seeing we're going to want to start seeing that win there. Bryce Harper news comes out earlier last week. Good news. This guy's recovery from Tommy John surgery has been nothing short of incredible. He is recovering at a rate that's pretty much unprecedented. I think I heard something on the radio a couple of days ago that Tony Womack recovered in like 180 some days. Harper's on pace for like 160 some days or something. He's been taking batting practice. He's been fielding ground balls at first base, which I'll get to in a second. It seems like he's able to slide a little bit back to the bases in kind of like a modified slide type of way. That seems like the last hurdle that he needs before he can kind of rejoin the lineup. And more importantly, maybe even more impressively, he might not need a rehab stint, which is kind of impressive since he hasn't really faced much live pitching other than, Ranger Suarez, as we've seen, has been throwing some bullpen sessions and live batting practice to him and Christian Pache, I think, yesterday on the field. So if he can get back without a rehab stint, it was reported yesterday that he could be back in as soon as 2 weeks, which really puts us way ahead of schedule. They were planning originally by the All-Star break. That's not until July. So I think originally the team was thinking sometime, mid to late June. He's going to be back, probably by mid-May or so, which, it was going to be a huge boost to this lineup. So once he's able to make it back, I think the smart thing to do is put him as your DH for the foreseeable future. I think Don made that point earlier. Make him your DH for the foreseeable future, just so that way there's no risk of injury while playing the field or anything. Him playing first base is very interesting. Originally, I think when there were some pictures coming out from some of his workouts and everything, he had a first base glove on, and people were starting to speculate a little bit. And then the club actually came out and said that, he approached management and said, I'm willing to learn first base while Reese is out. And I think it also is a way for him to kind of get back on the field a little bit quicker. Now it's not saying first basemen don't have to throw the ball, right? On relays, they have to throw. On a ground ball, they might have to throw to second or third or home to get a guy out. So it's still something, he can't really do just yet, but it's an interesting concept having him play there. Not even just looking at the short term, but in terms of the length of his contract, right? I think he's in year what? So he signed a 13-year contract, about 4 years. So he's got about 9 years left. By the end of that contract, he's going to be a little bit older. Now he is a super athlete and can pretty much do things that, most other people can't do. So maybe he would still be good in roaming right field, in his later 30s, but there's a chance that his defense in the outfield could, kind of slide a little bit or go downhill. With him playing first base, that takes away some of those mobility issues. By the end of his contract, who knows? Maybe he is a first baseman, and that's how we keep his bat in the lineup, so we can get other people in at DH, and keeps him on the field and keeps him fresh. Without having Harper in the field, his bat is obviously valuable in the lineup anytime you can get it in there. But getting him in the field also helps a ton at this point. So just seeing. But yeah, so then the other injury that has been kind of important at this point has been Ranger Suarez. We know that he's been out. He left the World Baseball Classic early, so this has been kind of something that's been lingering on for a little bit of time. Getting Suarez back, it seems like he's making strides, kind of the same pace as Harper maybe, except he might be a little bit longer. As I said earlier in the show, he has to make a few rehab appearances. He hasn't really pitched enough to build up his arm strength. So in order to have him be a true starter in the major leagues, he's going to have to work up that arm strength, get himself to about 90 pitches or so. So that way he can be an effective starter and help out this bullpen, who early in the year has been taxed. The bullpen has been used quite a bit at this point. So let's see. With that being said, I just got a question, I believe. So someone just asked who they think should be, placed in the minor leagues when Bryce comes back. That's a good question. There's obviously a lot of different options at this point. Cave, Clemens, Pache, who goes down to the minors after Harper is reinstated from the IL. That's an interesting one. Cave has not been great so far at this point. But he's a bench bat, right? He has a little power. He has a home run or two, and he, so he's been okay. Cody Clemens, I think, would be the one who you'd probably want to send back down to AAA. He hasn't really shown a whole lot in terms of offense. I don't even think he's necessarily a great defensive first baseman. So I think he's kind of one of those guys who's here as a placeholder until later on. Especially then, if Harper can come back and play first base at some point later, you don't really need another guy who can play first there later on in the season. So I think Clemens is probably going to be the guy that we'll see get optioned when to make room for Harper on the roster there. But that's an interesting point. So I guess we'll see what happens there. Anything can happen between now and a couple weeks from now. But that's something that you will have to kind of keep an eye on. But that was that's a good point, good question, something to think about. In other Phillies type news, right, where this is probably one of the times we've seen prospects kind of being something that are popping back up, right? For a while, the minor league system was kind of barren. We can all think back to Dominic Brown in those days and Kyle Drabeck, all those guys that were untouchable at one point when it came to trading for Halladay. We're starting to see some guys who are of that level now. Obviously, the big one, Andrew Painter, right? Everyone knows about him. Everyone's kind of anticipating his return to whether it's pitching, minor league games or eventually making his way to Philadelphia. Hey, Don.
You got me?
Yep, I got you.
All right. Technical difficulties.
It's all good.
We lost the internet connection.
Nah, it's all all good. I was just going into some of the prospects that the Phillies have and saying that it hasn't been something that we've really had a lot of recently, right? We haven't had prospects that we could really say, okay, let's go out and see what these guys can do. Now, our top 3 pitching prospects are pretty coveted by most teams. We're even starting to see some offensive prospects who could kind of start making an impact. So there's some interesting ones there. Mickey, I'm sorry.
No, most definitely. Like you see that they're getting the rebuilding of that restructuring of that farm system is really starting to see. You're really starting to see the benefits of where the farm where it lacked for so long. And I could hear. I was listening. I could hear you talk about the when Harper does come back, the guys that potentially get moved. But I think, right, even if you're talking about the benefit of the bat, which is like astronomical compared to whether it was Cody Clemens or whether it was the Alec Boehm version of first base, the defense that you're getting for Harper is kind of a wash, right? Even if he's moderately better than whatever those guys are with whatever version of health he comes back with, whatever you're going to get from him offensively is going to be immensely productive. And I don't think they're going to put him out in the field until they know for 100% that the structure of that elbow is going to be what it should be.
Absolutely. And I don't think Harper's going to rush it. And let's remember he's represented by Scott Boras, so Boras isn't going to let them rush anything either there. Because but Harper came out earlier in the offseason and said he plans on playing into his 40s. So there could be another contract, whether it's with the Phillies or someone else, that Harper and Boras might have their eye on a little bit later on. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt that at all. Anything else Phillies wise you want to talk about? There's a couple of Major League Baseball things I want to run by you before we jump out of here.
Sure, go ahead.
The A's, right? The news comes out that the land in Vegas is purchased already to build the stadium. This will now be like, if I'm a fan of Oakland, like I'm crushed because in the last couple of years, right, you've seen the Warriors move out of that arena into another arena, not in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
The Raiders moved to Vegas already. Now the A's are moving to Vegas. I can't understand why this franchise is, number one, why Major League Baseball is allowing them to be, one, as feudal as they are, but to essentially just be able to just walk away from a city.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And I felt bad for Oakland fans for some time because I feel like the A's have not been competitive. They haven't really been trying since these rumors of them eventually maybe moving to Vegas or somewhere else kind of came out. But yeah, it's a disgrace how A's ownership is running that team. I think I saw their payroll is like $58 or $56 million this year. I mean, Scherzer and Verlander are making like $40-some million this year. I mean, they're making 80%, 85% of a team's actual payroll. Like, how in the world you're right? You have guys like Steve Cohen, right, who's going to spend bajillions of dollars to get a team, which might be, so these little owners aren't going to like that. But there's got to be some middle ground, right? You can't have a team that's being completely uncompetitive. It's just a disgrace the way they're being run, and I feel bad for the fans of Oakland because they deserve better. I think I saw that they're 4 and something, and they already have a -100 run differential on the season, which is.
I was just going to say the fact that the run differential is 100 this early in the season, right? The game that they lose yesterday to the Rangers, I think they end up losing.
It was 18-3.
18-3, like it's just bad, and it's not a great look for baseball.
Mm-mm.
For them to be able to look at like teams just being able to just jump cities essentially at the cost of the fan, right? Because now, right, and it wouldn't surprise me if at some point, right, if Vegas is going to probably get an NBA franchise and make it just a four sport city, because at this point it's going to be three sports.
Yeah.
You see that the fan base support that they got from the hockey team, and how that upstart franchise will literally just create out nothing to a team that's, really productive in the NHL. They're seeing the support that they got from Vegas, and I think the proximity from Oakland to Vegas helps them too, because it's not it's a short flight
right
from Oakland to Vegas. So anybody who still wants to go and can go still can. It's not like a cross country flight.
Yeah.
But I think it's a sad state for baseball to look at where they are in terms of even in a sense, like when you look back at even that Moneyball era where they were good, they were a good team, and they still were drawing like next to nothing. And when they're being out attended by minor league franchises,
it's bad.
That's bad. And that's
Yep.
and it's a bad look for baseball when you're going to the highlights of the games that are in Oakland, and those games are like there's no. It essentially looks like nobody's there.
Yeah, it's an absolute disgrace. I also heard the thing. Did you hear there's a possum living in the visiting broadcast booth right now? So the visiting broadcasters can't even broadcast from an actual broadcasting booth. It's comical at that point. I mean, it's such a joke of a situation. But you made a good point about teams like the Rays don't have a large payroll, right? But they're competitive all the time. So there is a way to do it. The A's aren't trying to do that, though, right? They're trying to keep a low payroll for the sake of keeping a low payroll. The Rays are doing it because they don't have a huge drawing either. They don't have a very large market, but they're smart in the way they do things. Every year, I feel like they have 4 or 5 starting pitchers, and I'm like, every single year they're bringing up someone new who is just like lights out, and I'm like, how do you that's something that's always really impressed me. Even the Marlins to an extent.
Yeah, even to talk about the Rays front office.
Yeah.
Right. It feels like every summer at the end of the summer when teams are restructuring GMs, the baseball management end of it, it seems like the Rays are the team that they go to cherry pick guys from, and nothing drops off. Just the next guy steps up, and it's like, all right, well, that guy left. We're going to bring this guy in, and nothing. There's no drop off there. So I'm looking at the Rays and going, that's a team that I'd not only look for guys on with the on-field player development in their minor league system, but even in their upper management, right? They're picking, they're finding guys later on in the draft. They're finding guys to get productive, right? And not for nothing, but like the guy that they bring in the offseason, right? They cherry pick a pitcher from the Phillies, and he ends up being their highest ever paid free agent.
At like $11 million or something like that. It's crazy. The one time we got something over on the Rays, though, we got Alvarado from them, so that's when they let him slip on that one. So I'll take some solace in that for the Phillies front office and development there.
Most definitely. And then the other thing, the news comes out with Ohtani, right? That Ohtani essentially is going to look to move on from the Angels. Do you think he gets moved during the season? Or do you think that's the season?
So I really think it depends on how competitive the Angels are this year. I mean, they have had some teams that have shown some promise. Like on paper, that they're not bad. And I still don't really think they are. But when you have Mike Trout, who was pretty much the undisputed best player in baseball until Ohtani came around, and now Ohtani, that you have them on the same team, and you're still a borderline playoff team. I think that kind of shows a lot about them, and also not really being a seriously run organization too.
Yeah.
So I think I saw something yesterday. It all kind of depends on how competitive they are. Now I would selfishly, I would like to see Ohtani get moved in the season, because I would just love to see the trade package that has to go together to get him, and then just to see what he's going to get on the market next year. I mean, I know he's not in the Phillies budget here, but I'm very curious to see how if he breaks that $500 million mark, and not just if he does it but by how much. So I selfishly want to see him get moved just because I think he also deserves to be on a contender. I mean, the guy is a generational talent. How often, when was the last time we saw a guy that could do what he does? And not only does he pitch and hit. Yeah, exactly. And he's an MVP candidate on the offensive side. He's a Cy Young candidate on the pitching side. I mean, what he's able to do is just absolutely insane. But it's fun to watch. It is fun to watch. I do watch on MLB TV. I will watch Angels games just to see what he's doing.
So I was going somewhere with this. So when I look at the one, I agree. I think the trade package that you would see for Ohtani would put the Juan Soto package to shame.
Yeah.
Right. It would be multiple prospects, multiple players, essentially like your top 4 or 5 prospects, maybe a ready now position player. But if Ohtani does get moved during the season, does that open the door for another guy? Mike Trout. Does that open the door for Trout? Because I really feel like the Angels, to me, are like the Edmonton Oilers. They've got a lot of talent at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then the drop off between like the second and third guy is like the same drop off between the third guy and like the 27th guy. Like you have, McDavid and Draisaitl for the Oilers. You've got Ohtani and Trout, and then like not a whole lot else. So like if they decide to move on from Ohtani, does that then open the door for Trout? And is that something that you would be interested in pursuing?
Well, I think so. It's tough to say because he did just sign. He's right after Harper signed. He signed that long-term contract to stay there. Basically saying, he's an Angel. He wants to be an Angel. He wants to, help that franchise. I think if I'm like Trout, I'm very frustrated if they aren't doing more to try to make the team better, especially when you basically came out and said, I'm investing my time and talents in this franchise. I would expect them to be doing the same thing in return. And then to answer your second question, I think, if he does, because at this point, the only way it would happen would be via trade. And I think he has a no trade clause, but obviously if he approaches it, he can waive that. I mean, I would love for him to end up here. I just don't see a world in which the payroll would be able to handle that unless the revenue in baseball keeps going up like it is. I mean, the fact that, a couple of years ago, a high team payroll was like 180, 190 million. Now we're looking, and I think what the Mets are like 300 something million, but now they're obviously an outlier there, an extreme example. But, we're seeing more and more teams go into the mid 200s, high 200s. So it could keep climbing. Who knows? Going back to the contracts, though, the Bryce Harper contract is an absolute bargain. So that's going to help us going forward.
You're right.
Because he, we signed him at the timing just worked out. He took a little bit of a discount to get the extra years, which worked out really well. So that, and he also did it because he wanted to have that ability for the team to, maneuver and sign other players. So, I guess it's not completely impossible. I think it's unlikely.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you were to tell me that over the offseason Mike Trout requested a trade and Philadelphia was on his list of destinations, I'd definitely be in line to see what the Angels are listening for there.
Yeah, because I think you would obviously, again, you're looking at a package that's obviously less than the package that would be required for Ohtani, but also to be able to insert him into this lineup with all those other guys. The fact that you could slot him into play, I think, would be electric for the city. One, obviously you're mortgaging a lot of your prospects. You're probably packaging, maybe you're sending you're sending Marsh back to the Angels because they're going to need somebody to fill that position spot. Could it get done without giving up, Painter? If you backload, numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, like, is there a scenario where they could do that? Maybe. I just think like the to me, the conversation's there, right?
Yeah.
Because you're talking about, right, if Ohtani's getting moved, right? I know they're moving him because they're gonna want to get back some cost benefit for, him not wanting to sign. At the same time, are you looking at, him just being like, all right, well, if he's gone, what am I doing here?
Right. No, and I think that, that's a good point. And, Trout obviously being a local guy and being a Phillies fan growing up and everything probably helps that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, again, I think what the trade package for that would decimate the minor league system.
Oh, yeah.
However, I guess it depends on the window the Phillies think they have, right? I mean, if they're thinking, hey, we need to win in the next, 4 or 5 years due to some guys aging, due to contracts and things like that, then, maybe you do mortgage the farm system to be able to do that. And it's funny, I always tell myself this because, I've seen what happened with prospects like Dominic Brown and Kyle Drabek and these guys who, were untouchables at one point. They get traded, even Sixto Sanchez, same thing with JT. And they don't end up really panning out. And it's you sit here and it's like, well, I would love to see, I love seeing homegrown guys come up. I love seeing homegrown guys come up and hit their full potential. But a lot of times they don't. And I always tell myself, I'm like, prospects are prospects for a reason. If you have a chance to get a good player, go out and do it. I still have that inner battle sometimes in my mind about, well, do we really want to mortgage the farm? But at the same time, if you have a chance to win now, win now.
Yeah, no, the way I approach it, right? I can't remember who said it, but I remember hearing someone say, like, the team that gets the best guy in the trade is the team that wins.
Yeah.
Right. So at that time, right, you have no idea. And listen, go back through some of the bigger trades, right? The prospects that you give up for Roy Halladay, the prospects that you give up for Cliff Lee, the prospects that you give up for, name the A-list guy, right? The odds that those guys that you're trading, the odds that they will be impactful players in the future, right? And a guy like you just mentioned, right? Sixto Sanchez was a guy that was on that untouchable list for so long and essentially went to Miami, was productive for a little while, and then just kind of fizzled out. And, you're not really hearing pretty much anything from him anymore. So it's like, I go through the same thing, right? But I always look at like, what am I trying to do? If I'm trying to win now and I can give up those guys that may be productive in the future to be able to win a championship now, I'm not going to go back and think about what did I miss? We're going to look back and look at pictures of a parade and look at pictures of celebrations in the locker room. We're not going to be yelling, oh man, I really wish we got to watch Andrew Painter.
Yeah.
So it's like, but that inner struggle, man, it's real. It's real. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, you want to be able to see this team. And I think Dombrowski sees that window with the talent that they have. So I think they're not going to hesitate to move on guys.
Yeah.
But I think they're also going to be smart about it.
Correct. And Dombrowski has always been a win now type guy. So I think, that also helps there. But yeah, I mean, even if it's not like a superstar like Trout, I mean, there's still players out there that he's always looking to improve the team. And sometimes it's under the radar things, right? I remember the trade deadline last year when we got Brandon Marsh. People were like, okay, like he's a center fielder. He'll play defense. He's not going to, but he's not a great offensive player. Look at him this year. I think he's leading the league in OPS or whatever. So, I mean, if a franchise that's run well can get those types of guys, turn them around and make them productive players. And that's exactly what the Phillies are doing right now. They're taking guys who, were kind of not really flourishing in other places. They're taking them and now, they're doing really well here. Biggest examples, Sosa and Marsh. So I think that's a smart thing. You don't always have to get, the top guy on the market. It's nice to, it's fun to, right? When we got, Turner and Harper in the last few years here, even Schwarber and Castellanos, they were good signings. But, sometimes those little signings or little trades can be just as productive, especially when you already have a pretty star-studded lineup. Now again, with losing Hoskins makes a big difference, but getting Harper back will also make a big difference. Seeing guys like Stott, Bohm, and Marsh be productive hitters in the if they weren't productive this year, I think we'd be having a very different conversation right now about the optimism we feel with this franchise. A lot of what we were thinking going into the offseason was hoping that these guys were going to be productive, and so far they have been. So that's been good to see.
No, I agree. Anything you want to touch on before we go into final thoughts?
I don't think so. I think the only thing I was going to mention was Mick Abel started. I think it was Friday night. And had a better outing. I think he gave up 1 run, threw a lot of pitches. So he's still working on that control a little bit, but his stuff is definitely there. I think he struck out a good number. I think he struck out 5 or 6 in like 4 1/3 innings, but I think it took him like 80 some pitches to get there. So he, another prospect who's probably not too far away from being able to make an impact with the team. And especially, if Nola does walk at the end of the season, you're going to need a guy like that. So I just wanted when I was talking about Painter, and then when you jump back in, Abel was going to be one of my next things. And then I forgot to get back to him. So he was the only thing I wanted to discuss a little bit there.
Yeah, cool. Well, listen, final thoughts. I saw a really cool story. And it's actually a story that's pretty close to us. Have you heard about the guy that's playing college baseball at Monco? There's a story that came out. His name is Jim Fullen.
I don't know if
He's a 56-year-old retired postal worker and Army veteran.
And he just wanted to play college baseball, right?
And so right out of high school, went into the Army. Okay. Never went to college. Right after when he comes back from the Army, gets into the Postal Service, works in the Postal Service. He went back to school, started taking classes at Monco, played in some adult leagues, played well after, into his adulthood. But, as his kids got older, dropped off, picked it back up. But recently enrolled in classes at Monco, tried out. And he looks like your typical 56-year-old retired postal worker. Not in the greatest shape, but talk about a guy that didn't give up on a dream, didn't give up on, wanted to pursue it, even if it was on some level, right? Going back to college and showing, himself that he could do it. But he's going to he's out there at practice every day. He's traveling with them with games. He's gotten into a couple games. But he is the 56-year-old freshman right fielder for the Montgomery County College Mustangs.
There we go.
This was a really cool story, and a story that's that's local. But it's just cool to see someone who's out there who's kind of just doing their own thing because they want to do it because they're really trying to be able to pursue their dream. Just a cool story.
Yeah, that is cool. I read the headline at one point. I don't think I clicked the article, so I didn't realize it was so local. But I did see the headline that there was
on national news.
Yeah, well, okay, that might have been where and that's maybe why I didn't click the headline because I didn't think it was anywhere around here. So turns out it was. I should have read it.
All right, you got it. You want to go final thoughts?
No, I think we talked about this in the beginning of the show. Let's get that win today. Let's take a series against an inferior team here and go into next week against Seattle with some momentum here.
I love it. Well, listen, check out our we got the daily post with the highlight packages. We got the flagship show on Wednesday night. Check out all of our unique content. We got if you're out there listening, you're going to hear something for the Broad Street line. You want to chime in while the game's going on, the in-game reactions. Just a lot of cool stuff going on. Go check us out. We're on the Fired Up Sports Network. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll check back in with you later in the summer. All right, later.
See ya.
This is the Broad Street Line, where Philly sports fans leave all of their sports hot takes. Call 267-405-3062 and show us your passion for Philly sports. Don't forget to tune in every Wednesday at 8:30 when we listen to your live reactions to the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.
I
right, hey, listen to this guy. Tell me how you're feeling here. You're screaming.
I am stoked, baby.
You're screaming like it's still the game going on.
We're talking about the Fightins here. The Fightins. Said.
Should
They're swinging a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008